はい、皆さん、こんにちは。コメさんと申します。本日もザ・ファーストトリー続からいきたいと思います。今3回目なんですけども、まだちょっとよくわかってないところが結構あってですね。どうなっていくのかっていうところなんですけども、結末だけ楽しみにやっていこうかなと思っております。では早速やっていきたいと思います。なんでこれ毎回新しいゲームにフィーチャーするんだろうな。続けるでいいじゃない。新しくやらせたいのかな。ちょっとわかんないけど。なんかよくわからん宇宙っぽいとこに行ったんですよね、さっき。前回ね。これ。よくわからん宇宙っぽいとこに行って。この星を取ればいいの？どういうことこれ。ああ、なんか言ってたね。
I'm sorry for everything, and I know you need space, but I'm here for
なん
you.
だろうね、これ。
You don't need to feel so lost.
あの光目指した方がいいのかな？
Joseph, have I ever told you what my mother was like?
Hello, my name is Elise Wehle, and I was the voice actress for Rachel. I'm also David's wife. So that was convenient for working together. I was actually the voice actress for his first game, Home is Where One Starts. And I guess that I did a good enough job that David wanted me back, so I did the voice acting for this one as well. David definitely coached me through it because I'm pretty inexperienced when it comes to that. Home is Where One Starts was my first time ever doing voice acting of any kind. And we watched a lot of trailers of movies we liked to get the voice right of female leads who were talking in the trailer and try to mimic that and bring that into the game. So that had the right kind of feel and the right kind of atmosphere for the voice. My character actually is the same character from Home is Where One Starts. If you've played that game, you probably connected that together. And this is her probably about 15 years later, maybe 20 years later, in this game. I was happy to revisit the character of Rachel. We kind of leave her in an ambiguous spot in Home is Where One Starts. It definitely ends on a hopeful note, but there's not a lot of details. And in this game, you see that she's able to move on through a lot of her issues that she had from her abusive home and be able to start her own family and start a new cycle without that abuse, which I think is really inspiring.
You know what it's like not to have a mom at home. And you know how hard that made my childhood. What helped me was watching the birds in the morning before the school bus came. I thought that my mother was one of those birds. And it made me want to be free like her. My mom taught me how to fold origami cranes while she was in the hospital. So I told myself I would fold one every day until I could fly myself. I think we both have always loved animals, and for me that love started with a dog. Sometimes this Rottweiler would come up to our property line and wait at the fence for me, but only once in a while. I was sure to check every day immediately after school, and it usually ended in disappointment. I would even steal money from my passed-out dad just so I could buy these off-brand dog biscuits. Even when she did stop by, she never went beyond the fence. Why was she so scared?
So it's always interesting working with your spouse because, especially on a creative project, because they want your feedback, but it's something that's also dear to their heart, and they're dear to your heart, and you definitely don't want to hurt their feelings. So I was a little nervous when David asked me, he had finally finished writing the script, and he asked me to go over it and see what I thought. And I had minored in English. I minored in English, so I felt like I had a little bit of experience. But I was definitely like a little scared because you don't want to be too harsh, but you also want to be honest. And it was the biggest relief when I read the script, and I was like, oh, good. My husband's a good writer. I don't have to change that much about this, just a few like grammatical things. And that was just like the biggest relief for me because it can be a tricky balance working with your spouse and making sure that that honesty is there, but also that love and the support is there as well.
I think my dad was the opposite of your dad in almost every way, except he was in the military as well. He coped with alcohol of every kind. The trailer started falling apart, he got angry, and I withdrew. More and more, I became the weird, quiet kid who made lots of origami birds and carried dog biscuits around. I think we were pretty similar when it came to being the weird kids. And that same sincerity in college was
こんなん読んでられんけど
so
な。
drawn to you. Life got worse and worse. And at one point, I really didn't think I could survive another day with my soul still intact. I had no real friends, let alone neighbors, since we lived in the middle of nowhere. I should have talked to my teacher, but I was scared what he would do if he found out. As I waited for the school bus one morning, I walked around.
子供たちは元気なのかな。あと2匹いるって言ったんですけど。
Something I can't put into words.
あらまあ鹿のね群れが。
So we're talking about homes where one starts a lot. So if you haven't played that game, maybe this doesn't make as much sense, or maybe this is a little plug that you should go play it. But in that game, it actually features one of my artworks. I work as an artist, and
キツネちゃんのことなんてめっちゃ無視してるじゃん。
David used one of my artworks as a graffitied stencil in Home is Where One Starts. That's against the wall of this shack. And it actually shows up again in the first tree, just a fragment of it. The first tree, the title actually comes from one of my artworks that I made back in 2015, I want to say.
あれこれ
And I made this artwork while I was pregnant with our first child.
そんな推進なくない？
meaning for me, and David actually helped me come up with the title.
なんかちょっと推進がおかしい気がする。
I was like, I have no idea what to call this, and
Art.
I always go to David for title ideas and to bounce ideas off of him, and that's like the only way I can ever come up with a title is by talking with him. So we were talking back and forth and looking at this artwork, and
なんかいろいろ言ってるけど全然わからんな。
movies or shows were you watching while you're making the artwork? Because my work's pretty tedious, so sometimes I'll watch a show or do some Netflix binging while I'm creating it. And I was like, oh, I actually watched
ここまでの道のりで最初の子以外全然なんか面影がないんだよな。キツネちゃんの面影が。どういうことなのこれ。どうしたいわけ？
I summoned courage I didn't know I had, and I broke into my dad's room and found the key to the shed where he had locked my bike.
どうしたいわ
I'll
けこ
never
れ。
forget that feeling. The wind rushing by my ears as the sun rose over fields of wheat. I was flying for the first time.
結局よくわからん蝶のギミック
As
も
far as my legs could take me until I found a
なん
house
か
that
1回
felt
2回
friendly.
3つ取るやつに限ってはもう2回ぐらいしか出番なかったんだけど
In so many ways.
どう
And
い
if
う
it
こと
wasn't
こ
for
れ。
them, I wouldn't have found my foster family. And if it wasn't for my
でも
parents,
坂道はちょっとね弱いのよねこの子。
you have strength, Joseph. And you're not as alone as you
坂
think.
道はね割と飛んだ方が早い。
It's all just so pointless. Just waiting for life to happen. It's like having the home I always wanted is cursed
全部
out of
無駄なんだ
my reach. The thought of being a parent myself.
ネガティブ
How
好き
could
じゃな
I
い
do that when
な。
I couldn't even be a good son?
もうちょっとなんか
I'm sorry. I know what you're saying. I just
ポジ
don't
ティブ
know
な
how
ことを
things
ちょ
will
っ
work
と
out.
言ってみよう。
These quiet hours will turn into years. We'll wonder
松
which
岡
roads
修造さんを
passed
見
us
習って
by.
みよ
Then we'll forge a new road
う。いける
together.
いける大丈夫。
Besides,
やれ
I
るって。
discovered for
あ
myself
やれる
that
っ
one
てやつ。
fateful morning where any
あちょっと
hopeful
て
hope
て
leads
い
to.
ていててい
There may be thorns and mist, but it
ちょっ
always
と
leads to the same thing.
And what's that?
意外
Family.
とこのファミリー
I'm so glad that you're part of my family, Rachel.
レイチェル君が僕の
And I'm glad
奥
you're
さんな
part
の
of
か
mine.
A question I get a lot
いやいや
is why a
ファック
fox?
ス来たわ。
And it ties into
ファックス
just how important family is for me.
フォークス
And Fox is actually a family name from my wife's
フ
side.
ァミリー
from
ネー
Greece.
ムってどういうこと
And she always heard about the legacy of the fox family. And because of that, growing up, it was her favorite animal. She even made
100個
these
超えた
two
よ。
wooden
あ、
foxes
100
for
超え
our
ましたっ
wedding
て。
cake toppers. So I thought it would be cool to have that animal in the game
あ、
while
また場
these
面
two
展
people
開
are
す
having
る
this conversation in the middle of the
今喋ってるところでしょうが。それが終わってから画面展開しなさい。今度何これ雨降ってる。あらら。
The fox knew her last cub would be
ま
waiting
だ終わ
for
り
her
ま
at
せん
the
よ。
first tree.
あ
She was almost there. The rain cascaded onto the Jade Valley where the entrance to the tree was.
右も左も分からず落ちてっちゃった。
Because that's where life began. It was now only a mother and a daughter left. Items from my life still dotted the ground as she moved closer to her destination and destiny.
何これ？とんでもないとこまで落とされたよ。どういうことだね。あの上行けないんだけど。これあれ上行けないよ。あれ取れないかあれ。どうやってあんの取るの？これちょっとこれ戻っていい？これ終了するにしてこんなのってないよね。で続けるで、いや今のはちょっとなしだわ。これは分かったけどさ。
The fox knew her last cub would be waiting for her at the first tree. She was almost there.
まさか落ちるとは思わんじゃん。
The Jade Valley where the entrance to the tree was. Life was protected there because that's where life began.
あ、嘘でしょ？
There's now only a mother and a daughter left.
Items... どういうことこれ？いや。お前そこに行かせたいんだろ？行かせたいんじゃないのこれ。違うのこれ。
The fox knew her last cub would be waiting for her at the first tree. She was almost there.
そこに行かせたいんじゃないのこれ。
The Jade Valley where the entrance to the tree was. Life was protected there because that's where life began.
どういうこと？
It was now only a mother and a daughter left.
行かせたいんじゃないのこれ。
Still dotted the ground as she moved closer to her destination and destiny.
なんこれ。よくわかんない。いいや。何この欠陥。行かせたいんじゃないのそこに。ねえ。どういうこと？あそこに行かせたいんじゃないの？なんかあったじゃんそこに。もういいや、行っちゃおう。このゲーム早く終わらそう。よくわかんないこのゲーム。なんか寂しい音楽出てるけどさ、キツネちゃん、小キツネちゃんがいないことが私寂しいのよ。どうしたのこれ。何がしたいの？あ、ちょっと取れてないよ。ビジュアル。これ喋ってることってさ、あれじゃないの？制作環境の話してるだけじゃないのこれ。アーツとかビジュアルとかコックスとか題材についてとかなんかそういうやつじゃないの？
And this level, the Jade Valley, is inspired by
ゲーム中にそういうの聞きたくないのよ別に。
who did the Overland games. I just love those greens with a lot of gray in it.
そんなこと聞いてもプレイヤーは楽しくないんだよね。
And of course, this
そ
environment
ういう
pack
ところが
was
まあ
made
イン
by
ディーっていうよりもこれは
the very talented
なんて言っ
Swedish
たかな、
designer
学生が作った発表題材みたいなことかな。そういうイメージにしかなんないんだよな。
I'm really grateful that he allowed his environment pack to be made publicly available.
At the end of high school, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Drive.
上に行けるわけじゃないでしょ。
architecture schools on the West Coast, then got a dose of reality when looking at other students'
わからんけど
portfolios
さ、
and the high cost of tuition.
どうなのこれは。
I still wanted to be something.
これは本当に楽しいゲームなの？
And to to make those
評価され
thousands
る
of
べきゲーム
sketches
なんでしょう
worth
か。
something in my grand history. But now even an internship sounds
ちょっ
impossible.
と私には今んとこその
Caesar helped me understand how
このゲー
essential
ムが評
emotion
価
is
され
in
るべきところ
architecture.
が見当たらない
And
な。
he also said light is the real composer
た
of
だただキ
space.
ツネちゃんが可愛いってとこしかわかんな
I
い。
like to think these glints of light, like not finding a job or even a strange
あと
dream
なんか
about
も
a
うずっと
fox,
ピロートー
are
クを聞か
something
さ
I
れてる
should
よう
be
な気がする。
thankful for. Even if the illuminated space is something I'm less than comfortable with.
夫婦寝る前の会話をずっと聞かされてる。あれ何？あれなんか建物が見えてきたな。あっちなんかあるのかな？見てみよう。なんか建物が出てきたな。これはまた掘るやつね。
My dad was super supportive with my college plans. To a point.
あれはちょっと遠い
Things
な。
were okay until this
先に
terrible
あっち行ってみる
accident
か。
happened. I guess a forklift flipped over due to a bad axle, and it crushed one of the workers there. My dad didn't eat for days, even though he wasn't directly involved. It devastated him.
あ、そうなの？
Not only did it hurt the business,
事件はビジネ
it
ス？
just freaked him out.
大きな板で。
He
フ
would
ォー
talk
ク
in
リ
his
ストは、
sleep,
下敷きになっ
muttering
ちゃった。あ
things
ららら。
about firing people and saying sorry. One fateful day, he approached me,
あ、そうなんだ。
said that since my school search wasn't going well, I should finally be a man and take over the family business. He said one day he was going to die, and that all of his work, sacrifice, and even that man's life would be wasted in vain.
あ、そうなの？
I just lost it. Teenage me just
自分は
exploded
その顔
at
に
the
唾を吐いたん
thought.
だ。あ、そうなの？
I screwed up. I said things I shouldn't have. He
The
was having a
first three.
crisis, and I pretty much spit in his face.
タイトル回収しましたけど。
By now, you've probably caught on to some of the themes I love to
これ終わり？
explore in these stories. And the big one is of this tree, the first tree on Earth. And a lot of people have asked me, what does that mean? Why a tree?
あの家まで行くのこれ。
And basically, it boils down to this delicate balance between nature and its relationship with life and death. And I love these stories where they put like these microscopic relationships, like something of like a father and a son, and juxtapose it next to this epic story of like the creation of the
どこ行
universe
けばいいんだろう。
and the first tree on Earth, and how they can be equally as important, because in my mind, like, my family is as important as like the creation of the earth. And it reminds me of like some of the stories I love, like The Road by Cormac McCarthy, or The Tree of Life by
どこ行けばいい
Terrence
んだ？
Malick.
あの家目指せばいい？
Basically, I wanted to make sure the player felt that there was a
わかんな
higher
いから、
power
とりあ
than
えず端っこを目
themselves,
指してい
and
く
that there
か。
was something watching over them as they went through this story.
このテラテラした地面を踏むと足音が変わる。こっち行けばいいの？本当に。どういうことこれ。どこ行けばいいかわかんない。あー、場面展開しそう。しなかったわ。これは合ってんのかなこっちで。こういう時にこの星を置かないとさ、プレイヤー迷っちゃうでしょこれ。ここで水を取ってて、1個か2個置いとくべきじゃないの？どこ行けばいいのこれ。こっちじゃない。こっちへ行かしたくない。あの家まで行きゃいいのこれ。ちょっとわかんないなぁ。まあ見るからにもあれしかないもんね、行くとこね。あそこになんかあるじゃん。あそこにあるわ、なんか。家の前になんかあったわ。 なんだこれ。これ何？なんかの小屋か。朽ちた小屋がある。これはいいとして、やっぱ家まで行けってことか。キツネちゃん、あの家に用があんのかな？とりあえずここ登ってきゃ家まで行くでしょ。あ、こっからは？あ、ここは行かせたくない。はあ。ここから先は行かせたくないみたいですね。なんだなんだ、どうすればいいんだこれ。何が正解なんだろう。わしゃ無理やりでもここ渡ったんぞ。ほらほら。キツネちゃんのこのジャンプ力を見なさい、この。その打ち方はないよね。はい、家まで来たぜ。ここに行かせたかったんだろ、お前。あそこにもあるわ。苦労して登ったけど。あそこにもなんか光あるじゃん。わかるかい、そんなもん。なんかあそこにも光あったな。見えないわ。なんかあっちの方に光があったっぽいけど。どこ行けばいい？音楽終わっちゃったよ。ねえ。音楽は？ミュージックプリーズ。音楽欲しいです。あれ？なんかそっちの方になかった？あれ？気のせいかな？ちょっと高いところ登って見てみようか。さっき来たとこだな。あれ、光かなあ、キツネちゃんの体が見えちゃう。あれは、違うのかなあれは。とりあえずどこ進めばいいかわかんなくなっちゃうね、これね。あ、あれか。あ、またなんかあったわ。なんか、病院か、嫌な感じだな。あっちの方になんか、なかった？さっきなんか見た気がするけど。あ、これ。あるじゃん。本当に？またよくわからん音楽が鳴るのかな。先にあれ通るか。これは本当に取るべきもんなんだろうか。ちょっと取り逃しちゃった。意外とこれ取るのが難しいのよ。 チーンと取って。で、この光。こっちが行くべきところ？
Was that the last time you talked to him?
やりとりだったの？
No, I called on holidays, and he would call on my birthday. I guess we acted like nothing ever happened, which was stupid. Didn't want to ask about his lumberyard, and I'm sure he didn't want to ask about my job search. I never went back and visited. I think the last conversation we had was about what movies we had seen, what exactly a best boy is in the credits. I thought he would be here so much longer.
へえ。あれ？あ、キツネちゃん。そらしょぼくれるわ。ああ、キツネちゃん。ああ。そうでしょ。
Moving forward. My dad died alone in the middle of the wilderness. I should have been talking to him more. I should have done a lot of things differently.
あ、最後のステップだって。これで終わり？
If the first tree on earth brought life with
地
it,
上で最初の木が生の方。
if it taught the birds to sing and fly and showed saplings how to grow,
こんな語りとかどうでもいいから。
what could it do for us?
キツネちゃん。
Obviously, there's a really emotional part, but I'm gonna talk through it anyway. A lot of people correctly identify that Journey was like a huge inspiration for the first tree. And this part, it is like a callback to that part where you're climbing up the mountain with your friend you don't know, and it just gets snowier and snowier, and you just keep going, and then eventually you collapse. And that part, that made a huge impact on me. And I don't even own a PlayStation 3 or 4. I rented a PlayStation from like a rent-a-center right after completing All's Where One Starts, just because I'd heard so much about it. And everyone was right. It was a very impactful game. And it definitely inspired the first tree.
この語りとかどうでもいいや、ほんと。ああ、しょぼくれてて走ることもできない。そりゃしょぼんとしちゃうわ、こんなの。
There was a letter I received yesterday from a name I didn't recognize, with a quote I can't stop thinking about. Death is not the opposite of life, but a part of it.
もうジャンプする気力もないのか。
I'm realizing one important truth. Each of us have our own journey to the first tree. But sometimes I'm not sure I'm ready to take that first step.
You already have my
こ
love.
こから行けばいいのかな。なんだろうな。精神世界の話なのかな。結局、キツネちゃんの物語がちょっとよくわからんな。私が星を取り忘れてたのがダメなのかな。マックス取れてないことがダメなの？これはどこに向かってんだろうな。なんだこれ。どういうことなんだろうか。本当にここに向かってって合ってるのかな、これ。合ってるっぽい。え？はい。最初の木は目を覚まし、子供たち最後にもう一度だけ伝えたいメッセージがあるかをキツネに優しく尋ねる。キツネはこう答える。 あなたの答えを入力してください。どういうこと？もう、でも、キツネちゃんも子供たちいなくなってたんだね。あ、ちょっと、そういうことか。欠点待つか。じゃあ、次は、幸せになってね。せ、な。人生を。人生じゃおかしいか。幸せな生活が男性か女性かわからんからな。に。あらん。こう、立ちとてと。あらんことを。しまった。あらんってこれじゃないか。あらん。有するってことだからこっちかな。こうと。お。こうかな。で。この星の数が文字を打てる量なんだ。なるほどね。そんだけ文字打てますよ。打つわけねえだろ、そんな。これでいいよ、もう。そんなに多く語るような内容じゃなかったと思う。親ギツネちゃんも消えちゃった。あら。
I guess her journey was over.
うん。
But I have no idea.
ただの、夢だったの
It's
こ
only
れ。
a dream. A distraction from
結
tomorrow.
局はこいつの話
I
か、
don't
全部。
think dreams normally bring back to memory so many important feelings. Maybe it was just a
そうな
dream,
のか
but
ね。また、
it was also a gift.
そっか、キツネちゃんの話じゃなかったんだね。
But tomorrow we're getting on a plane to the
そ
last
りゃ面
place
白い
on
話じゃない
Earth
わ。
I want to be. The only person that would have made the trip worth it is gone.
そうですか。
You're going to see him and be with him one last time before you say goodbye. I have one last quote for you by Emerson, sealed in an
さあ、もう寝
imaginary
ましょう。
letter from me to you. It is the secret of the world that all things subsist and do not die,
私
but
が
only
ず
retire
っ
a
と
little
さ
from sight and afterward return again. Go to sleep,
途
my
中全
love.
然読んでなかったけど、
We have a big day
あれかな、
tomorrow,
お父さんに会いに
but
行
I'll
く
be
ため
there
の
with you every step of the
最
way.
後の日なのかな。
Thank you.
前日っていうか。
Thanks for listening.
うん。
Good night, Rachel.
Good night.
Good night, Joseph.
ジョセフ。ジョセフ。ジョセフっつったらね、私はもうジョセフ・ジョースターしか出てこないです。ジョジョ大好きなのでね。あの人は長生きしましたね、ジョセフは。ローディング入った。長いローディングだな。これで終わりなのかな。 6ヶ月後？え？え？なにこれ？キツネちゃんの6ヶ月後？え？なにこれ？これはなんだこれ？え？ TPS なんだけど。え？え？え？なにこれ？どうすればいいのこれ？え？なんか見てるわ。これどこ？え？なんか開けたけど。え？これ、なにこれ？え？いや、わからん。なにこれ？操作も何もわからん。え？なにこれ？ちょっと、わけわからん。どういうことこれ？いや、いきなりわけわかんないのやめてよ。どうすればいいのこれ？え？なんなのこれ？どういうこと？6ヶ月後だ。何がしたいんだこれは。目が覚めて？ほうほうほう。どこなの？これ開けるんでしょ？あ、なんだこれ。
You're probably thinking,
何？
what is going on? And that was definitely my
何言って
intention
きたいのは
for this
私なんだけど。
epilogue part of the first tree. This is my favorite part. This is the part I'm most proud of. And it definitely,
あ、
like,
これ
it's
で外
supposed
出
to
たのか。
evoke this, like, what is
何
going
だったの
on?
さっき
Where
の。
am I? I was not expecting this. When I was marketing and blogging about making the game,
こ
I
れもうキツネちゃんじゃ
never
なくて、こ
showed
の男触
anyone
ってん
this
じゃないの？
part. I never told anyone. I never shared screenshots. I wanted it to be a complete surprise.
まだ
And I
続くの
also
こ
wanted
れ。
it to feel a little creepy because it's totally inspired by those nights where you wake up in the middle of the night and you can just hear the sounds of the wind outside the house and you can't sleep. So you walk around in this like twilight
何これ？
stupor. And I would say the whole first part of this game where you play as the fox, its whole purpose is to set up for this conclusion. So yeah, I would
どこ
encourage you
こ
to
れ？
look around and see how many things you recognize from the earlier part of the game. I tried hard to foreshadow this epilogue just because I wanted it to be a surprise, but I didn't want it to feel too out
よ
of
くわ
place
からん
that
け
it would
ど、
be humorous.
何がしたいのこれ？
And so Joseph earlier in the game, he would say things like,
あ、ジョ
I
セ
felt
フ
like I
ね。
was right behind the fox the whole time. In my mind, the camera perspective acts as a metaphor for who the player is, what they're seeing. If the camera represents Joseph,
有
or
刺鉄
just
線が
like
置いてある。
that video game trope of having the camera follow you. I guess the big question I wanted the player to ask themselves, is this a dream as well? And if so, does that even matter?
これ今日どこ行けばいいのこれ？何これ？何これ？ キツネちゃんのゲームをやりに来たんだよ、私。こんなおっさんを触っても私、何にも嬉しくない。ほーっつってるよ。な、これ。いやー、せめてどこを行けばいいかわかんないけど、教えてよ、それぐらい。ほーって言ってるよ。夜中にこういうとこ歩いちゃダメなんじゃないの？私は今どこに向かってんだ、これ。暗すぎて何にも言えないし、何をすべきかもわかんない。これはどこに行くべきなんだ？あれ？これ以上行けないよ。暗くなってきた。暗くなってきたよ。明るい方に向かえばいい？いや、何これ。よくわからん。どこ行けばいいのこれ。いやー。あ、なんかあった。通れないんだけど。通れないんだけど。なんかあったのはいいんだけど、あれ通れないよ。あれ？こっから行けないの？どういうことこれ？いきなり一人称視点になってよくわかんなくなっちゃった。なにこれ？どういうことこれ？どういう言葉だってばよ。何をすればいいのかがわからない。どうしたいのあなたは。何を指してほしいんだいこれは。これ歩いてる？これ走ってんのちゃんと。これどこ行く？これ行けないよね。どういうことどういうことなの？何を指してほしいのかがわからない。どうしたいのかがわからないと。何もできないんですけど。どこ行けばいいの？これ行けないでしょ、こっち。ほとんど飛べないんだけど。何がしたいんだ、お前。訳がわからん。車に乗りたいの、お前。車に乗りたいわけじゃない。あ、ちょっと暗くでも、ちょい。真っ黒やだ。あっち行きたいんじゃないの？どういうこと何すればいいのこれ。4じゃないんだよ。何がしたいのか言ってくれ。わからんだ。でもあそこしか行くとこないでしょ、これ。なんでこれ通らせてくれないのこれ。どうやってあそこ行くのこれ。あ、こっちから行ける？行けないんだけど。どうしようことこれ。どこに行かしたいのかわからん。 や、不便だな、これ。どういうこと？あ、暗いのはダメ。なんか明かりとかつけれないの、これ。こんな暗闇を歩くなんて正気の沙汰じゃない。どうするのが正解なの、これ。お家の中にまだなんか取り忘れてることがあるのかな。お家戻ってみるか。いや、何これ。いや、わからん。何すりゃいいのこれ。正解がわかんないんだけど。こっから来た？どっから入ったかわからなくなっちゃった。これ違う？あれ？これどこ？私どこにいるのこれ。何それキャンプマーク。キャンプに行けって？キャンプに行けってこと？いやいや、もっと最初に言えよ、お前、本当に。わけわかんねえんだよ。どこキャンプどこ？キャンプどここれ？これどこ行ってんのこれ？今どこに歩いてんのこれ？違う。なんか違うとこ歩いてる。あ、ちょ。キャンプ地に行けばいいの？わからん。わからん。わかんないっす。どこ行けばいいんですか？これ戻ってきた？これどこ？これ戻ってきた？戻ってきた。キャンプ。なんかこの辺、ちょっと行ったとこにキャンプなかったっけ？どういうことこれ？ちょっと、わからん。これはキャンプじゃないもんね。あれか。これか。ここでいいの？これでいい？これでいいのか。いや、わからんわ、こんなもん。もうちょっとその目標みたいなやつ作ってくれ。はあ。
What the hell?
あ、キツネちゃん？やっとキツネちゃん見つけたよ。光ってるキツネちゃんが。なんじゃそりゃ。なんか撮ったぞ。
I purposefully fade out the crosshair in the middle of the screen because I wanted it to be a direct callback to the camera following the fox in the first 5 levels of the first tree. I wanted it to go for that gut reaction that this was very familiar, yet totally in a different world.
ここは一体どこなんだ？いつまでキツネちゃんを追いかければいい？あ、花が。これ走ってるはずね。歩いてる音が聞こえるよ。 待って、キツネちゃんちょっと待って。どこ向かってるのキツネちゃん。ねえ。ねえ、待って。追いつけない。でっかい、なんか川、泉かな。そこまで連れてってこうとしてる？どこに向かわしてるの？黄金色に輝くキツネちゃん、どこに向かわしてるの？息切れしないってこの人すごいな。こんなに走ったら私息切れしちゃうよ、これ。どこに向かわしてるの？あれなんか足速くなったキツネちゃん。なにこれ音楽。もしかしてこの音楽許諾されてないやつじゃない？なんか嫌な気配がしてくるな。追いついちゃうよキツネちゃん、追いついちゃう。もう追いついちゃう。捕まえちゃうぞ。ほら捕まえちゃうぞ。もうちょっとだ。ほら捕まえちゃうぞ。ほい。追い抜いちゃった。どこ追いついちゃった。そこね。私の方が早くて追いついちゃった。いやもう途中とかどうすればいいのか全然分かんなかったな。もうちょっと案内出すなら早く出してほしい。早い。キツネちゃん早い。どうしてそんなに早く行っちゃうの？疲れた？そうだろうな。こんなに走ったらさ、疲れるわ。なんなんだい。なにこれ。
Thank you for making it to the end of my game, and I hope you enjoy the personalized message that is featured on the trunk of this tree. It's a message submitted by another player that's retrieved from a database, and it's retrieved at random. And I did this because I wanted people, even if they feel alone through trials of death, that there is a community, an invisible community supporting each other. So thanks for playing.
子供たちと一緒に。どういうこと？物語性が全くわからない。終わったよね、これ。The First Tree。終わりました。はい、というところでね、今回で The First Tree 終わりとさせていただきたいと思います。終始ね、ちょっとわけがわからない。もうそれにつきますね。ちょっと自分語りが多すぎたかな。物語を重視してない気がしましたね。結局このキツネちゃんとこの喋ってる人は何が関係があったのか。これは現実世界なのか、それともこの人の夢の中の話なのかが全くわからない。妄想なのか現実なのか、それもわからないっていう。なんとも言えないゲームになっちゃいましたね。最初はちょっとキツネちゃんがね、出てくるゲームなら面白くないわけがないと思ってやったんですけども、そうでもない時があるんですね。ちょっといまいちでしたね。The First Tree に向けてオンラインベースにコメントを提出したいですか？他のプレイヤーにはランダムに表示される可能性があります。可能であれば英語を使用。無理です。でも、いいよ。送ってあげる。ローディング中ね。はいはい。 ランダムで表示されてたの、あれって。いや、一回も表示されてないよね、私。これって、クレジットかなんかに出てきてんのかな？いや、違うよね。設定、まあ、新しくゲームするしかないよね。はい。といったわけでね、最後の最後まで意味がよくわかってないですけども、こんなところで今回は、というか、ザ・ファースト3終わりにさせていただきたいと思います。また次回ね、別のゲームでお会いさせていただければなと思っておりますので、ぜひぜひその時はよろしくお願いいたします。それでは改めまして、ここまでご視聴いただきありがとうございました。また別の動画の方でよろしくお願いいたします。それでは失礼いたします。いやー、全くわけわからん。謎が謎を読んでる。